This was middle of 90s, and I went on, as it is, usually the typical Western student of Hindustani classical music. We coming in winter season, we have to return, earn some more money, and it's a bit like a living, like an NRI, I always call it. We just go out to earn some money to come back home. So at that point of time already I didn't know, to do full justice to this music, to this instrument, I will have to come to stay and to live here. But good sort is one thing, to do it really is another thing, because of course you have to live from something. And even this is such a rare instrument, it is something really should be supported. There's nothing. So you have to basically take care, you have to choke out your own way. How are you going to live? How are you going to practice? What will you do? So for me it took almost 12 years in which I was going up, down. At the same time, that is musically important to understand the way I play the Veena today. A little bit later, maybe from 2001, around 2001, I started to learn also from a vocalist, a Dhrupad vocalist. His name is Ashish Sankrityan, and he had learned from several masters of the Dagar tradition. Ustad Dagar, Ustad Dagar, and Ustad Dagar. And today he is actually the guru in the Dhrupad Gurukul in Bhopal. So he was important in two ways. And first of all, we know this music, the instrumental music, is all coming from vocal. And especially in playing Veena, the Dhrupad Ang, the way how you build up an alap to do this really in a structured, essential way, this knowledge, this kind of grammar, this is mainly preserved in the tradition of the Dagars. So even the family of my Guruji, Ustad Asad Ali Khan Sahib, they are known for having over generations a close relationship with the Dagars. So even my Khan Sahib, after his father Ustad Sadiq Ali Khan Sahib passed away, he was spending a lot of time in Delhi with Ustad Faimuddin's father, Ustad Raimuddin Dagar. So there was always a very lively exchange between this rather instrumental tradition of his family tradition of Veena playing and the vocal, what they did. And even somebody like Ustad Faimuddin Dagar Sahib, who is known as a singer, he had for 12 years training on Veena. So all these connections were there. And so I started the vocal teaching also, playing it, adapting it to the Veena. And that over the years changed the approach I had towards the Veena. I was in those young years very happy to play the smaller instrument where you can mainly, the main forte is the faster Jor Jala. That is also the main forte when you see Ustad Asad Ali Khan's playing. His Jor Jala is just unparalleled. He has brought the traditional Veena playing to such a height, inclusive, of course, an exquisite alap. But the main thing were those Jor Jala. Now learning alap, Dhrupad in the Dagar Vani style, I tried more and more to incorporate that in my Veena playing. And what I found then is, it's difficult if the instrument is not going along. The instrument makes a lot of, or has a lot of influence how you can play, how you will play. When you want to do an elaborate phrase, something like that, and you have an instrument which doesn't have sustain, you have to stroke and to stroke again. So I started to research on that matter, okay, how can you improve the sound on the Veena? And what I basically did, after having this small, simple instrument in the beginning, I got another better one in Germany, which was from the old Veena maker. His name was Murari Mohan Adhikari, from this Kanailal and Brothers shop. Then coming back to Calcutta over the years, I tried to find out where he was living. And after 2-3 years, I got successful, even maybe after 1-2 years only. I found him in his residence in Baranagar. So I came with his, once he made this Veena, to his house, and kind of, okay, we have what we call the Javari work, which needs to be done from time to time to give the right kind of sound. So I asked him to do that, he was ready for that, and we started to have our relationship, to discuss things. Maybe the next year, then I started to inquire, okay, could you maybe do another instrument for me? And he was at that point of time like, no, see, we have done so many Veenas, but now it is all finished. And that went on for maybe 3-4 years, and around 2000, I went to Delhi to learn with my Khans up there, but the winter season I came back to Calcutta to just see the friends, to have the musical season and enjoy the pleasant winter. So that time I went again to his house, and around 2000 must have been, I was sitting in his room and he brought the tea. While I was sitting there, I was seeing under the bed some spare parts laying, something like what you could see there. So I asked him, Acha, Murari Babu, what's happening? This looks like some dant from a veena and things. You have told you're not making any instrument anymore. He said, well, if you want now, you can order one. I don't know whether he got too bored, or let's say it's simple, he needed money. And okay, we were in changing the instrument, sound and changing the instrument. So I asked him when he was ready to do another instrument, I said, see, I'm learning with Ustad Asad Ali Khan. So I play traditionally. But I want something more of this bigger instruments, of the bass, of the sustain. So what can we do? So we started to make some instrument which was a little bit between the traditions. And after that went successful, I asked him again, please go a step ahead. That was already in 2004, 2003, 2004. And that was one of the last instruments he did, because he passed in 2005, unfortunately. It was, yeah, no, it was normally, he was not that old, but it was as it is. The more problematic factor was that he was really leaving nobody behind, being sought all the intricacies of how to do it. Something inside me told me, if you really will start in melody instrument, it will be not sitar, it will be not sarod, it will be only veena. And well, to put it in words, I mean, it's difficult, it's a subject of heart, right? But to put it in words, I mean, the best way to explain, I would say, every instrumentalist is basically, of course, also a vocalist. He's singing through the instrument. Now, when I don't use my own voice, I use an instrument, I will choose an instrument which is somehow resembling the voice inside my heart. Something which is expressing what's going on there. That might be better expressed by a flute, or for another person by a santur, sitar. So in my case, I was knowing it will be only veena. You know, sometimes when I go on travel with that instrument, it's so huge, you can imagine this instrument alone has a weight of 10 kgs. Plus a box, it's making 30 kgs. So it's a huge problem to travel even. To go in the train, in the flight, you need like almost a second ticket, you have to pay extra luggage and so on. Big constraint when organizers want to invite you and you tell them, okay, we come in two, me and the veena. Please consider that in the travel cost. Now, why I'm saying that, sometimes I'm really getting so tired with it, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should at least play only soba. It's big, but it's one piece only. I carry only one box. As soon I'm listening a bit of veena again, you hear the sound of that instrument. It has something you can't find even in the best soba, which is coming very close. It was designed to get the best of the veena and the sitar together. Right? You can play a wonderful Dhrupad alap on soba also, but the speciality of the sound of the veena, I can't say it better. It's not there. It's only happening in the instrument, most likely because of that structure with the tube. So, when you want to express yourself, you have to take all the pain. If this is what you have chosen, yes, sometimes I wished I would have chosen the bansuri. And I have. I mean, it's a bamboo in origin, you know, only a big one. I was joking with a friend who is a bansuri player. So there's actually, what I'm trying to say is, there's not much of a choice, I think. An instrumentalist, the instrument is calling him. He has to work with the instrument then, but it's basically the call of that voice of the instrument. And for me, it was always veena. There was no other choice. So then this is like a marriage. You have chosen, so you have to live with the good and with the bad. In all ways. It was then in 2009 when finally I could back up my things and could really realize what I planned for so many years to come to India and to live here for good. At that point of time, I had 2-3 instruments from Murari Babu, but they were all either some traditional or a little bit smaller instruments. So when I came to India again, I had already in mind, okay, driven by the music, by the development my music took, I want something which again the sound is more enlonged, which has more depths from the instrument, so you can create better the vocal patterns in the alap. Then I was watching out in Calcutta, okay, who was there? Maybe some assistant who have worked with Murari Babu. There was a cousin brother, Govinda was his name. He lived up to 2009. So I had met him very briefly, but then he passed also away. And I tried several sources kind of. First I asked the people, okay, can you try to repair something to just see whether they are be able to do such a fine kind of job we need here. And after trying different angles, ways, I just saw it's not going to happen. There's nobody who has that knowledge, nobody who has that craft, this kind of precision, which I would demand to make a veena as I needed. So the only solution was, you have to do it on your own. Now, I'm not a craftsman. I can't chisel with my hands. I maybe can saw, but I can't do fine works. But at least I understood what kind of instrument I want to have. So what I started from there then, I started to work with different karikas. Even the main karika I work today with, he's not coming from the instrument maker. He's rather a carpenter and a very talented kind of carver. What you see, the ornaments and everything, it has been done by him. Now the good thing is, he really has a hands to do what I need to be done. And another good thing is, he doesn't take much of interest to say, oh, it should be done this or that way. He is sitting in front of me and asks me, okay, what is the next? How will we do it? What are the measurements? Where do you want to go? So, well, I was playing the veena, but then to make a veena is again a different story. I had seen a few things with Murari Babu. I'd seen a few things with a friend of mine who has made his own veenas in Germany. And being a German, of course, we have a certain training in being precise, measuring things. But there were many, many points in making this instrument to bring it here. And it took 6 years to finalize this one first instrument. Out of a batch, we are working right now on 8 instruments. After 7-8 years, we are not fully finished. You can see, basically, you can see it's consisting of the 2 parts. Even once it is finished, always you can detach the tumba, of course 2 of them, and they are nowadays adjusted by a kind of pipe and screwing system with some wing nuts once they are adjusted here. That is mainly a question of transportation. If you wouldn't detach the tumbas, it would be like impossible to transport the whole instrument as it is. So in old days, actually this connection between the tumba and the dand used to be done by some straps, leather straps or something. This has become a much more elaborate kind of system, having what we call the clamp over here, and then finally having some brass pipes and wing nuts, which will adjust or fix the whole system once it is inside here. So the upper part, which you see here, what we call the dand, has already connected 2 of the parts which were separately made, that bird over here, and what we call the sheshna. So this is an instrument which is rather in the style of what we call a Dagar styled veena, the development which I told you before, Ziauddin Dagar brought together with Murari Babu. Traditional veena would be rather a little bit longer done. We would not have a separate piece like here. And the bird used to be, the cuckoo as we call it, used to be much smaller. So making this a little bit bigger, you can see it's hollowed out here. This is at least one way to create a kind of sound box under the bridge, the main bridge, the Javari as we call it, which is fitted over here then. And this kind of thing, I have done a few adjustments here from the older instruments which I had from Murari Babu to again increase the sound. And it worked quite well. Now, the dand itself, as I told before, also is made from Burma teak. And you can imagine a long piece like that. Basically, it was once a square kind of beam. So first you have to round it and then you have to drill it. In old days, of course, the bamboo was used, so you didn't need to drill it. Or when they started to use wood, and they didn't have this technology of lead machines where you could drill it, they would cut it just into two halves and then chisel it out and then glue it again together. Now I personally think it's much better to have an instrument being done or consisting of one piece. But these are kind of jobs which makes it maybe also difficult, you know, to just manufacture a veena, because to find this kind of workers who would do it on the machine, and you have to imagine you have a really huge kind of drill to do that. And you can't drill it just like, it has to happen in a very, very, very slow pace, because otherwise you would burn the fiber inside. So when we started to get our instruments done, as I told, you know, in the beginning I thought of 1-2 instruments. It was not possible to do just 1-2 instrument. So we had to do a kind of set, because then only we could go to several workers and ask them, okay, we have at least some 10 pieces of that. Can you do this job? And then it's very difficult. As you can see, this instrument is more or less finished here. It's in the last stage. It has got already its final French polish, color polish, as it is called. This is another point which is very, I would say, almost difficult to get. There are very few workers who can do a very fine polish today. And in fact, if you see the normal Lal Bazaar instruments, let's call it like that, for a student, you will do the same kind of polish within one day, which we do over several months. I mean, the way how the polish is done, this is maybe one of the points where the seasons keeping us enlonging the time more and more, because practically you cannot do it in all the months of the monsoon when it is too moist. The people will do it for cheap instruments, they will do it with some fire drying it up, some heating lamps or this and that, not for this kind of instruments. So you are practically out for 6-7 months. Then you wait for the puja to finish, where of course also nobody is working. Then you have maybe 1 month before the winter is coming in. We are just facing the problem right now, where the people again will say, oh, it's too cold. And as you know, the Bengali winter, already in February, suddenly the temperatures are coming up and they will start to say, oh, it's too hot. So in this way, you know, it's very easy to understand why we are taking so many years to finish, to get really the best kind of quality. And like this polish, you have to do it in a lot of different layers. It's starting off to close the fiber of the wood. So when we do all this work, I mean, this was one of the ways of working. I had to find out also, how do you do the polish? When do you do it? At what point of time? I mean, as an outsider, you would naturally say, finish the instrument and then you are just painting it. It's not working like that. Because the way how this polish is applied, it's difficult to apply it when once all these kind of parts are there. So what we finally found out, the best way to do it is to, once the pieces are still apart, this one, this one, this one, that one, you do a kind of ground polish up to 50-60%, and then you have to assemble it, and then again they have to do the final polish. After that, where this parda will be set, in old times the parda used to be fixed by a mixture of what is called a raising kind of thing. Today, as you can see on the instrument here, we are using rather a modern system of binding them. That has the advantage actually that you can move the frets according to the need. The way how the strings are going here is not a straight one. Actually, this bridge is much lower than this bridge. And even the way how the height of these frets are, they are going again in an opposite direction. They are rather becoming smaller. And that's a very crucial kind of factor. You have to find out how to work it out while you manufacture the veena. See, on a sitar it's rather easy. You have only the metal kind of pada which you can bend according to the needs. Now we have to manufacture this really difficult kind of structure which has a half round over here, and that has to be adjusted exactly to the round of that dant. Then we have what we call the laga, the metal crown over here, and this again has to be adjusted to a point that you on one side can play it easily, that there is not too much of distance here, because when it is too much of distance here, while you are playing, it will tire the finger very easily, especially when you want to play faster, right? On the other end, there is something, when you do it too low, and you play one of the frets, the next one starts to hit. So to get this kind of balance, to have it high enough but not too high, low enough but not too low, this is a very crucial job, which again I would say none of the instrument makers who tries to make a veena has understood, because they are not playing. Now sitting as a veena player there, of course we can very well understand, okay, if this is not done properly, you won't be able properly to play, right? So we take the pain and setting this kind of frets, the fret trimming itself, by different ways adjusting, this is taking almost, I mean, it takes not the same time, but almost as much time as, finishing the structure. It's a very crucial part, and this is maybe something, life is unfortunately too short, but if I would continue to develop, to evolve the instrument more, which could be maybe changed to make it easier. Kunti, the pegs, they are done from ebony wood, and ebony wood is it is used in most of the Western instruments, and here you see it sometimes, but most of the workers will avoid it because it is very hard to work. It's very hard, the material. So the chisel, when they try to make the ornamentation, it's breaking continuously. And to make it like this, it was only possible that I told my workers, see, I don't pay you per piece. I pay you for the time you need. But I want you to do everything really nicely. You take 1 day, you take 2 days, I don't care. But that is, of course, taking a lot of time, and in the end, I'm a musician, not an instrument maker. So it's always a question, where do you put your focus? But this is something what maybe future generations and makers can develop better, in a better way. So now we are following the traditional way, but it's like the music itself. You have to be very subtle in the setting, only then you will get a result. If you don't do it, in my eyes, it doesn't make sense. If you make a pot, it looks nice, but it has 5 holes, how will you use it?
Absolutely. Thank you.